It's Thank you for tuning in for a very special We the People with Trisha Flanagan. We are doing a special broadcast tonight because we are still on election watch. When we came to you on Tuesday night, we thought that everything was going smoothly and we'd have election results in full. And as you know, there have been significant delays as we go west. Especially in Arizona. We are still waiting on election results, but we also want to update you on the very significant things that are going on with the leftist narrative. So bear with me while I bring in the boss lady, everybody's favorite producer, Michelle Albergo. We're having a little technical moment, but she will be on the way momentarily. Let me start off by giving you some background on what's actually going on. Hold on, let me just check her. We're having a slight glitch. I want to give you a little update on why we're having the technological difficulties we are and how appreciative I am that you are being patient with us. So we are a new podcast and we've been growing by leaps and bounds. So we are upgrading our equipment and it's a little bit, with all of the ins and outs of the technical part of it. I'm not a technical expert, but we are so happy that we are growing, and that's why we are again so appreciative that you're being patient with us while we go through these growing pains. On my last broadcast, I was a co-anchor, and we were getting 35,000 views per night and growing. And we hope to take that same projection and bring it to this new We the People broadcast. Our goals are to always bring you the truth, to be the media source where you can trust our analyses, where you can trust what we say and how we say it. And we know that we are the news now. So, as President Trump has said, the fake news is the enemy of the people. Well, we want to fill that gap. And we're so thrilled that you choose to spend this time with us when we have these broadcasts. So I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm going to bring Michelle Albergo in. She is the boss lady. She is, as I said, everybody's favorite executive producer. Please join me in welcoming Michelle. She was our correspondent on the ground, embedded at the DeSantis election victory headquarters. And now we've got her back tonight to get an analysis on not just what happened that night, but on what's going on with election shenanigans across the country. So welcome, Michelle.
Hey, thanks for the big welcome. As usual, always wonderful to be on with you, Trisha. And still recovering from election night, so my voice is definitely getting raspy. But yeah, let's dig into the nuts and bolts of the election, because now it's Thursday and we're still counting.
We are, and we were hoping that there was going to be some breaking news that we could share with you tonight. We know that Lauren Boebert is on the verge of victory, but they're pulling the same stuff there in Colorado. And we also know that anybody that was listening to Kari Lake with her updates, she is confident that she is going to win that governorship in Arizona. She's confident that Blake Masters is going to come through victorious. We're keeping an eye on the Nevada race. That looks like it could be still one of the polls that we have toward a U.S. Senate majority. But I'm encouraged by what Kari Lake said that reflects what Ron DeSantis said the other evening. He pulled off a perfect, really almost flawless election night. He had everything counted. He had boots on the ground. He had staff to protect the election results from being stolen. And he was also holding the line against the federal election commissioners that Biden wanted to send in. And when you compare that with what Kari Lake is saying, when she wins the governorship, and I believe her, I do believe that she is going to be the next governor of Arizona. There are over 600,000 ballots that are yet to be counted, and she is going to take the lead because those are the ballots that were dropped off on election day. And as you know, those are going to favor Carrie Lake. But she said something important. What she said that reflected what Ron DeSantis did is she said when she becomes governor, she is going to make sure that all of those election results are counted properly. She's for returning to paper ballots, and she is going to, I think, follow the blueprint that Ron DeSantis followed for this very successful night in Florida. So help us break this down, Michelle. You were there. You were in the energy that was palpable, not just, I'm sure, from where you were, but across America. We were broadcasting, had some technology glitches then too, but walk us through the night. You were there with Ashley Moody, with Governor DeSantis, with his team. Tell us what that was like to be there for this historic victory in Florida.
So, yeah, I mean, congratulations to everybody that was involved on the ground on the campaigns of Ron DeSantis, Ashley Moody, Wilton Simpson, and everybody. It was a victorious night across the entire state. We picked up, we flipped counties like Miami-Dade, Hillsborough, where Tampa is, Palm Beach County. I don't know how if people understand how blue Palm Beach was. And something I read that was interesting, Broward County, which still remains blue. Biden won, I think, by 30% in Broward County. And we cut that Democrat lead. Chris only won Broward by 15%. So that shows you that even though Broward stayed blue, we made some gains in very blue Broward. So that was kudos to the teams that were on the ground, because I will say that the way the teams run here with the Republican Party of Florida, with the Ron DeSantis team, the Ashley Moody team, it's a well-oiled machine. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're getting the job done. And the other part of the success is that, we've had 800 people a day approximately move to the state of Florida from blue states, and those people are not moving because they want to bring their politics. They're moving because they love what the governor has done for the state. So our voter registration, which the Republicans were behind the Democrats just a few years ago, we're now like 370,000 more registered Republicans than Democrats. So all that combined, we had a red tsunami in Florida, and we do have to start thinking about making America Florida at this point. So some of the things, election night was outstanding. My voice is raspy. I had a ball. The energy, I've never been to one of those events, so this is my first time. But, you always watch the news and they go, oh, the energy is palpable. It is, especially in a room full of people that are supporting the governor. Even Ashley Moody's room was crazy. It was an exciting night. It was a fun night. It was a hopeful night. And the energy was so positive. And it was just one big love fest for the governor. This state adores Governor DeSantis, and rightly so. His handling of COVID, his handling of the economy. And then we had a major hurricane, Cat 4, come through Southwest Florida, and he handled it like no other person could handle a hurricane. And now we just finished having another hurricane come through Florida with Nicole. And, he didn't even have time to enjoy his win. He was up bright and early on Wednesday morning doing press conferences about the hurricane. So awesome job, Ron DeSantis. Great night, great energy. Very excited about the future.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that future and how positive a night it was across the board. There was a red wave. The Democrats are trying to steal that victory. They're trying to steal the narrative. We're going to touch on that. But before we move on to that part of what happened on election night and what is still unfolding, I want to hover for a moment on something key that I think you said, and that's on Broward County and on Palm Beach County. So, those of us who are not Floridians know very well about Miami-Dade County, that was so deep blue. And so part of this real entrenched victory is that Governor DeSantis flipped Miami-Dade County red and Palm Beach County. Now, I think of Palm Beach County as being more red than it actually was. But that's a Herculean task, isn't it? When you said that both Miami-Dade and Palm Beach counties were flipped to red, you really don't have any more Democrats
No.
in
No, we don't. I mean, include
state legislature. You really
Yeah.
kind of wiped them out in one fell swoop, didn't you?
We did. Well, we have a supermajority also in the state legislature now. But even include Hillsborough County in that list as well. Hillsborough County is where Tampa is, so another urban area. That flipped red. Pinellas County, which I believe is Charlie Crist's county, and he lost his own county. And listen, Charlie Crist is now, he has broken, I don't think there's anyone in history that has lost as a Democrat, an independent, and a Republican, but he's got the trifecta. He's lost in all three categories. Yay,
Yep.
Charlie Crist. So yeah, it's pretty phenomenal what's happened. This state is as red can be. I don't know of any other that can beat us at this point as far as how conservative we've become. And with the supermajority in the state legislature now, we're going to be getting some really cool things done here. Really, I'm really excited about what's going to come up very soon.
Oh, me too. And I think that, again, that can be a blueprint for the rest of the country. I know that governors like the future governor, Kari Lake, is looking to that.
Well, I
She's
mean,
gonna implement a lot in Arizona as well.
when we're talking about election integrity, if we zoom back to that, and I know Kari Lake, the Florida model, I mean, I know the blue states don't really want to do it because it would mean that we'd have fair elections. But really what we did was we banned mail-in ballots. We banned ballot harvesting. We used voter ID. And then we created, Governor DeSantis created the election police force. So, and then of course what they did on the federal level too, to keep the inspectors out of the counties. If every state did that, we'd have results right now. And I know Kari Lake has been really optimistic. I am slightly concerned. And Katie Hobbs is the one she's the one that is in charge of counting the votes. That should never be allowed. But I am getting slightly concerned, and I do think that Kari Lake will pull it off in the end. I think it's going to be close, and I know that they're trying to pull shenanigans over there. I am not at all optimistic about Blake Masters, but I'm praying. But that's just how I was just talking with a few people inside, and we're all kind of on that same path that Blake Masters may not get there. I'm praying he does.
I think that this is going to be a surprise. I think that
Hope
that's
so.
part of what the Democrats are trying to push down as a narrative, and it's not going to work. The Democrats have tried to steal elections, and now they're trying to steal every bit of energy from the red wave. And I want to go through some analytics and some numbers that show exactly what the truth is. When you look at even the most optimistic projections of the 2022 midterms for what the GOP was going to gain, even the Democrats were only projecting about a 2.5 plus gain in the House. That was even the optimistic Republicans were saying that. You know what we got in actuality? The reality was that we are plus 6%. That's almost 3 times what the Democrats and the rhinos were saying we were going to get. And then to top it all off, the next day, they tried to dilute the results by getting out the blue vote. They all, what they wanted to do was they wanted to get the mail-in ballots and that tally first.
They do it all the time.
That are the blue votes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what they do is they say, well, see, look, they cut all of the results, at least by half, maybe even 2/3. And then they say, look, where is the red wave? It was a trickle. And unfortunately, there were Republicans who were on those mainstream media news sources the next day agreeing with them. Yeah. Mercedes Schlapp is one of them. Mm-hmm. I can't even believe that when we have the rhinos who are giving fuel to the Democrat fire of a narrative that there was no red wave. Yes, there was. When we have rhinos that are being complicit, we have to fight both the Democrats and the rhinos in that equation. But I am very optimistic. And look, here's the bottom line. The wins that we got out of election night. Nancy Pelosi's gavel has been taken from her hand. We will get a majority, and that majority will be larger. Some projections now are between 20 and 24 seats that we are going to gain in the House when the dust settles, and that is almost 6 times more the majority than Nancy Pelosi had in 2018 when she reclaimed that speaker's gavel. So here's the reality. She's out of a job as Speaker of the House. We can talk about what that's going to look like. That's still another issue, but she lost her job as Speaker. We also had a major victory in New York, and that is that the chair of the DCCC has been unseated from his congressional bid.
Mhm.
And that's huge right there in liberal New York. We also can't forget that with this newfound majority, what we get is subpoena power, and we get chairmanships for all the committees, especially the ones that matter, like the Judiciary Committee. And I believe that Jim Jordan is going to resume his chairmanship of that committee. And with that comes accountability for Joe Biden, for Hunter Biden, for the Biden regime at large. And I think that that's what the Democrats are so afraid of, and why they're trying to shift the focus away from their accountability that they're going to get and trying to dilute the narrative. They're not taking the red wave away from us. It's real, it's here, and all that has to happen is the dust has to settle, and we have to keep an eye on close races. But the beauty part is that what happens in the House of Representatives with that majority, that means we neuter Joe Biden legislatively. And that's with or without a GOP Senate. So if we win the Senate majority, that's icing on the cake. But the reality is that the red wave is here. And Joe Biden is nervous because in his press conference the other day, he was talking about no need for impeachment. He doesn't want accountability. He met with Kevin McCarthy, who will likely be the next speaker. We'll talk about that and whether that's a good thing or not. But the reality is the GOP majority is here, the red wave is here, and now it's on to 2024. We're not going to let the Democrats steal our thunder.
No, you're right. This was a win. There's no doubt about this was a win. And it's pretty typical for the Democrats to try to dilute it and water it down. They're terrified. They know what's coming. What gets aggravating to you and I is when you see fellow Republicans doing the same thing and going with the same narrative and diluting it. There's no doubt there's a win. Listen, I'm thrilled that we can finally stop sending money to Ukraine. They've got far more money than they ever needed, and now we can finally turn that off. And power of the purse is Congress. So I'm glad to see that we'll rein that in completely. Not to mention, as you said, holding accountability to people like Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and I'll throw in Fauci and friends as well. Let's start looking into what's going on with COVID. So there's a lot and I'm hoping, and I think some of these like Jim Jordan and Marjorie Taylor Greene have a lot of this teed up already. Marjorie Taylor Greene was stripped of all of her committees. She's going to get something now, and I can't wait till they let her loose because she's got a lot going. I think she's got a lot teed up and ready to go.
Oh, I think there's a lot. The fireworks are going to begin. I can't wait to see Senator Rand Paul, Dr. Rand Paul, get his his legislative teeth right into Fauci, and he will not let go. But speaking of teeth, I'm gonna pull I'm gonna let my dog
Winter.
And Winter is my little meatball is getting a little upset that she's not part of the action. But while I let her in, Michelle, talk to us a little bit about what it's going to look like now in Florida at the state level, because now on the federal level, Florida was also responsible for flipping 4 blue seats red in U.S. Congress. But talk to me a little bit about what's going on at the state level, because at that level, you don't have any more Democrats to contend with either. You got a supermajority. What's that going to mean for things like the pro-life cause in Florida and other legislation that you want to get passed as a state?
Yeah. So yes, we are bright red right now, and it is really exciting because now with a supermajority in our state house, I'm hoping that at this point, we get a full ban on abortion. I'm hoping that we get constitutional carry. And also looking at the schools. School board races were really big here in Florida. Every school board candidate that Ron DeSantis endorsed won. And that's going to be huge also, because now we can start taking CRT out of the schools, and we can stop teaching kids about gender identity and pushing the transgender agenda on our children. It also means that we keep people like Dr. Ladapo, who's, I think, the best Surgeon General in the country. He went and looked at data. He looked at real science when it came to COVID, and he followed the data and the science. And that's how we managed to keep our state open and safe. And, so kudos to Ron DeSantis' choice and Dr. Ladapo for the Florida Surgeon General. So there's so much opportunity now that Florida has coming towards it, and I'm hoping that other states, especially states that are red, like Texas and hopefully Arizona, and will start using Florida as the model. And realize, I think every pro-life governor won, pro-life abortion became this huge issue in this election. And the media, as usual, is trying to say that more people are pro-choice than pro-life. And I don't agree with that. And I don't think it's true. I think that the pro-life movement is growing stronger by the day. I also think there's more young people in the pro-life movement than ever before. And that is showing, especially here in this state, I'm talking about the pro-life movement, showing, especially here in Florida, in our candidates who won. All of our pro-life candidates won. And I was telling Tricia, I was telling everybody how I'm pretty sure that every pro-life governor won their race as well. So don't get discouraged when they make it sound like, the loudest voices are these pro-choice crazy people, because the loudest voices aren't always the most voices. And I think the pro-life movement is well on its way, and it's gaining strength every single day.
I think you're 100% spot on. And, when you look at some of the exit polling data, Democrats that voted, 70% of them came to the polls because they wanted to vote for killing babies. But when you look at the age demographics, it skews younger. We know that. We know that that's just, it's not just a product of being young, and most young people at this point are Democrats, but it's also a product of the indoctrination that's going on in
It's
school.
misinformation too.
Well, exactly. And with the media being the mouthpiece, it's the perfect storm. And of course, the Democrats love it, but that's part of what we're fighting back against. And I think that that's part of the excitement of the red wave, and part of why the Democrats want to dilute it so much, because they want nothing more than to keep the fuel to their vicious agenda flowing. And they know. They know, and you can hear it in Joe Biden's voice. You can hear it in those who lost. Again, everywhere from New York to we held seats in California. One big issue that came up was Mayra Flores in Texas. She did not win her reelection bid, but that was due primarily to Democrat gerrymandering of the area. That wasn't because we had a great candidate in Mayra Flores, but counted that with Anna Paulina. Anna Paulina.
Anna Paulina Luna?
Luna, thank you.
Yeah.
Anna Paulina Luna, who did win in Florida. So, we've got a nice surge of pro-life congressional members that are ready to, I believe, fight for things like, I think they're going to bring the heartbeat bill back up. I think they're going to bring the Born Alive bill back up congressionally, because as many know, in Montana, one of the referenda that was on the ballot
131
was simply giving life support to
Correct.
a baby who is born alive.
Yep.
And that is a whole other topic. That is, I don't know much more that we could think of that's more evil than that. But the solution is going to be to get that federal law in place. And that will be accomplished if we can get stark support and staunch pro-life fighters on the congressional floor to get that Born Alive bill passed at the federal level, to get that heartbeat bill at least passed. I want it to go all the way to conception. I know you do too, Michelle, but that's the bill that may come back to the floor. We'll take that at least, and then we'll work on dialing it back all the way to conception. But when we look at individual races, look, in my race, I lost my primary, and Chris Smith ultimately won the nomination. He is a big pro-life supporter, but in 42 years in Congress, he hasn't been able to get that legislation passed. Maybe now, since he had a challenge in the primary, maybe now how he sees and hears how radical the left is in their agenda, maybe he will help to lead that charge and lend his experience.
We're praying for you, Chris Smith. Let's do it.
Right. If he can lend his experience to the might and the voice that we're going to have with these new entrants to Congress, I think we could possibly do it with New Jersey's help. Wouldn't that be great? I know you've got friends in New Jersey, Michelle, right? You got
absolutely. I'll lock arms with Chris Smith if he wants to go and say babies. Let's do it.
Exactly. I think we need to call on all of our representatives to band together on the Republican side and get that done. And let's counterbalance that horrible referendum that was on the Montana ballot.
That's terrible. That was, yeah, referendum 131, I believe it was in Montana. Yeah, it's pretty scary stuff. Really scary when they can actually think that's okay. There's nothing okay about that.
Not anything. You're
Nope.
exactly right. So, let's talk about what the energy has to look like over the next several weeks, because as Carrie Lake said, she expects in the next several days to hear that good news that the votes are tallied. But some of the folks at Katie Hobbs' office, because like you said, Katie Hobbs is the Secretary of State, and she should have recused herself. Carrie Lake asked her to,
Absolutely.
and she said that she was going to do her job. Well, her job is to be impartial. As a candidate, she can't wear both hats. But there are going to be lawsuits. Harmeet Dillon was on the ground with Carrie Lake. They have the legal team there. They're fighting back. But some of the folks at Katie Hobbs' office are saying it could go through Thanksgiving. They're preparing for maybe
Crazy.
working through Christmas. I mean, when you look at what the election of 1862 was without electricity and without digital ballots, and they were able to complete the count within
Trisha,
2 days.
we have 22 million people in Florida, and we just had a Cat 4 hurricane roll through. Lee County had only, I think, 12 voting locations open in Lee County because of the hurricane. And we still managed to pull off a successful election day and have results within an hour after the polls close. This is doable. This is nonsense what's going on. This is shenanigans. This is them also trying to dilute it so that, if all those wins came through right away, it would have looked a lot scarier to the Democrats than if Carrie Lake wins in 2 weeks when everybody might have forgot about it.
Yep.
So that's part of their strategy too, just kind of steal the thunder away from Carrie Lake. But man, does she have thunder. So when she gets into office, they could just watch out.
That's right. She is thunder. So
She said she's going to be their worst freaking nightmare. That's what she said.
Yes, she did. She did. And I, that's exactly what they're afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
And, she is not going to relent one bit, and she's going to torque it up. And I
Yeah.
applaud her for that. I
I'm
cannot wait.
right behind her.
Yep, same thing. And this is a win for all America, isn't it? Because, these are individual governorships, of course. And like you said, people are moving in droves to these conservative states. Babylon Bee had a headline out that the Acela, they're going to get a high-speed Acela going right from California right into Texas. It's going to be from the East Coast down to Florida, I'm sure, too. But also for those who do not choose to vote with their feet and move to another state, this still is a win because it's not just giving a blueprint for other states that want to do it, but even in those stubborn blue states, the big five, I call it, New York, New Jersey, Michigan, California, and now we've got some of the blue states, blue states in the Midwest involved. It's growing, but it's not unstoppable at this point.
Right.
And I think the more governors we get and really anchor our conservative cause, it amps up the pressure. So how do you think, what are your thoughts on how your win in Florida is going to translate across the country?
Well, again,
governors?
I'm hoping that we can use a Florida blueprint and use it across the country. But part of what I see happen, like for example, a state like New Jersey, what people have to starting on the local level. When I lived in New Jersey, I was a Middlesex County committee woman. People like ourselves, conservatives, have to, whether you like it or not, because it's called establishment, get involved in your local Republican organizations, your county organizations. You have to start taking it back from there because your GOP has to be able to put these candidates up and find these good candidates. If you're only going to be as strong as that GOP is. So if you start getting the right people in, and I'm in Collier County, very red Collier County, and when we see people that start coming into I'm a Republican executive committee woman here too, but when we start seeing people come in that don't really hold true to the Republican platform, we start bringing in people that we know that are more conservative and hold the Republican platform and push those people out. So now your organization is run by conservative Republicans. if you start building that in a state like New Jersey and people start getting involved in their establishment, we can get rid of the rhinos and the uniparty, and you'll have the right people going forward. They don't realize how much power that committee seat has when you start vetting candidates. But if you bring the right people in, somebody like yourself, Trish, you would have had them on Tricia Flanagan's side. And you just froze up. So I will chat. So again, as when Tricia gets back to us, but there she is. So get involved locally. Get involved.
I think you bring up an excellent point, and there are so many state dynamics that go on. So for example, in New Jersey, until we get rid of the line system, for those that don't know about the New Jersey primary ballot, you get the coveted spot, the very first line. It's called literally the county line. All of the chairs choose their own candidate who to support, and it's always the establishment candidate. It does not change. We gave it a good shot, but we made headway. But until that county line system is changed, it's going to be establishment at all, in all channels all the time. In New Jersey, now we're making headway in other states. But here's the other thing, and this goes to what happened with Senate candidates, GOP Senate candidates that didn't get the funding in time. Because what happened was this was an orchestrated establishment mission to make sure that there was an establishment candidate in every primary to challenge the MAGA candidate, the true conservative candidate, in virtually every race. And to top it all off, Democrats in some races were funding the MAGA candidate because they thought they'd be easier to beat. So what happened was Mitch McConnell ended up sinking hundreds of billions of dollars into these races in the primary, so that then everybody was falling short when it came to the general election. Intentional? It looks like it was, but either way, we know it was intentional in the primary, whether it was intentional to also sandbag the general, well, we don't have all the evidence for that in yet, but the reality is that whether it was intentional or not, the results were still the same. And then when you look at somebody like a Herschel Walker, who is still battling it out, everybody's got to get behind Herschel Walker across the country.
And you can, and not only get behind him with donations, but there's websites you can go down. You can make phone calls for Herschel. You can go down to Georgia and start knocking doors for Herschel Walker. And I agree that needs to be done. But getting back to some of the things, I would love to see Ronna McDaniel go too. I don't think I think we need some new blood in the RNC. Mitch McConnell poured tons of money into Murkowski's race, and what happened with Oz and with Herschel? What happened to those guys? So if we can start getting more people involved, the right people involved, we then will elect those chair people of the counties. We then can elect the chair of the state, and that's how we can start in some of those bluer states to get them on track to get the right candidates up, and then get those candidates elected. Fundraise, it's got to be a well-oiled machine, and people are going to have to start stepping out of their comfort zone a little bit if we're going to make changes. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I'm just looking up because I want to be able to give folks the resource. If you want to help Herschel Walker's team with a donation, $5-10 will help. We've got to get him over the finish line. Let's not forget that this all started with Warnock taking that seat by a special election where every Democrat virtually in the country, there were Democrats that were moving, they were changing their residence for 6 months just so they could go and help Raphael Warnock.
That's what the Democrats do.
And vote for him on the ground. I mean, they play like that. So we have to counterpunch with that. I mean, Republicans have jobs. So, the difference is they can't pick up everything on a whim and move there, but we can certainly help from afar. And I'm looking it up now. If you want to help Herschel Walker with a donation, you can send it to teamherschel.com. That's TeamHerschel.com, teamherschel.com. Help however you can, because just as the Democrats pull together, and that's how they took that Georgia seat in the first place for the worse, what we have to do now is everybody's got to get behind Herschel, and we've all got to pull together and reclaim Georgia, because we can't cede any more ground, folks. We cannot do it. When conservatives left Twitter and left Hollywood and left the school system, and what we're doing is we're leaving it so that the Democrats can come in and just pick it up and take over what
And they
we
will.
have right to in the first
And
place,
they will.
America. That's right. The scripture says that when the devil leaves, when demons leave a believer, then they have to fill it with the Holy Spirit, or those same demons are going to come back, and it's going to be worse than the beginning. And so we can't abandon that seat again. We didn't get behind Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue enough. And so the Democrats took it over. We've got to go reclaim that seat. We've got to help Herschel Walker, and we've got to get back what is rightly conservative territory.
Yeah, absolutely. The Democrats will do it every single time. So if you leave the door open, they're coming right in. They don't miss those opportunities. They're pretty good at it. And we need to be better at it. And it can be done. Yeah. Herschel needs to win.
He absolutely does. And that will, now let's look at the lay of the land. Let's look at the Senate seats that we have to get for the majority. So we're at 49 seats. Last I looked, the Democrats are at 48. So if we can, if Blake Masters can pull it out, as Kari Lake says she is fully confident he will, and if we can claim that Nevada seat.
I think we're going to have Nevada.
Right, and then that will be 51. Now, if that happens, Herschel makes 53, and the more, the higher majority, the higher numbers we can get, the better, because then when you pepper in Joe Manchin, who does vote for sanity, he's a Democrat. He's one of the few Democrats that will actually partner with Republicans when the good of our country is at stake. And then we have Kristen Sinema in Arizona, who wasn't up for re-election this year, who will still retain that seat, but often joins Joe Manchin.
Yeah.
So if we can get to 53, you pepper those two Democrats in, now we're at 55. It's not a filibuster-proof majority. It's not a veto-proof majority. We'll get there in 24, is what I believe.
We will.
But it will hold the line in the meantime. But I can't stress enough that part of the red wave, good news, is that with or without the Senate, we have claimed a victory because we've neutered Joe Biden legislatively. We take the chairmanship of those committees. We are back in business for accountability, and the Senate will be a nice, icing on the cake. We want it, but we don't need it for the victory that we've already claimed. So, and that we already have. We have a segment that I'd like to touch on. That's some interesting. I'd like to try it out. We talked about doing a prophecy.
I got to grab my phone.
Okay. I'll tee it up. So Michelle will be right back with us. But what I'm going to share with you now in these next few minutes is we'd like to start a segment called Prophecy Watch. There is so much going on right now in America that is so interesting in the context of prophecy. One of my favorite things is to look at how things are shaping up according to Scripture, because we are born again Christians. We know we've read the end of the book and we know how it ends. God wins. And we know that in the end time, whether we're in that final 7-year period, that 70th week of Daniel, whether we're in it right now, there's a lot of indications that say we are. So many prophecies have been fulfilled. The creation of the state of Israel in 1948, that was a huge piece of end time prophecy, because really the end times couldn't be upon us unless Israel was a nation again. Well, it is. Can a nation be born in one day? Well, yes, it can, and it was with the Balfour Declaration in 1948. We also got Jerusalem back as part of Israel. That was that was another crowning piece of end time prophecy. Now, scroll forward to where we are. Are we in the 70th week of Daniel? Well, I don't know if it's officially begun. We've ended a Shemitah year. Anybody that follows Rabbi Jonathan Cahn and listens to or has read his books about the Shemitah and all of the fascinating things that happen around that. We just ended a Shemitah year, so we're in another 7-year cycle that started on Rosh Hashanah this year, the Jewish New Year. And so when we look at what is going on right now, in America, within the context of that kind of prophecy, there are really interesting things that pop up. And Michelle and I did we're going to do a segment. I'm going to bring her back in. And Michelle, I just kind of gave an overview of, what prophecy looks like through the lens of what's happening right now, biblically, spiritually. And when we look at some interesting things around this midterm. So first thing I want to touch on is there was a blood moon. There was a total lunar eclipse that was a blood moon on election day. And, some of the memes, some of the, the lighthearted jokes were that even the moon voted GOP. But it goes deeper than that. And, when we look at what blood moons mean in context, blood moons are, they're a sign, because the Bible tells us that God put the bodies in the heavens for signs and for seasons. We're not talking about astrology. That's not anything Christian. But when you look at what the predictions can be according to some of the heavenly bodies and the signs that we're seeing, there was a blood moon on election day. And there were also some other signs. Blood moons typically mean triumph after tragedy. And then when you look at some of the other weather happenings, we've got some interesting stuff that we want to share with you. So Michelle, can you walk us through, you found this very fascinating pattern. For those of you that don't know, Michelle is really our resident meteorologist. She's better than NOAA and NASA sometimes in predicting some of these patterns and those spaghetti graphs that you see about hurricanes. Michelle is the one that makes sense of those for us. But tell us a little bit about this very fascinating weather pattern that you saw that was culminating with this Category 1 hurricane that's just zigzagging across Florida. What did you find?
Well, it was just by accident. So, yeah, I mean, really what was happening, guys, is Trish and I were on the phone this morning talking about the blood moon and the king tide, which also coincided with the blood moon. And as we're talking to each other, and I'm not sure if you guys could see this. So we had a Hurricane Nicole today. But anyway, if you can't see it, so Hurricane Nicole was today. 43 days ago, we had a Cat 4 Hurricane Ian. In 2004, and that's why I wish you could, I don't know if you guys can see it. In 2004, we had Hurricane Charlie, which took a very similar path to Ian. And 43 days after that, we had Hurricane Jean, which took an extremely similar path to what Nicole was today. Both of those paths make a cross over the state of Florida. So, Trish went ahead and looked into the names, and you want to fill them in on what we came up with?
Sure. So now let's just make sure that our audience has it top of mind. So in 2004, there was a Category 4 hurricane that came first.
Right.
That was
Charlie.
Right. And then 43 days later in 2004,
right,
there was a Category 3 hurricane that came through, and it was Hurricane
Jean.
Now, so we're in 2004. Charlie means free man. Jean means God is gracious. Now, scroll forward to 2022.
18 years later.
18 years later, which is a significant number as well. 18 years later, we have a Category 4 hurricane again that came through that was Ian. And that name means God is gracious. So remember, Jean means God is gracious. Ian means God is gracious or the Lord is gracious. And then 43 days later, again in 2022, Hurricane Nicole comes through. And the name Nicole, it's the female version of Nicholas, which is a Greek name that means victory of the people.
And Nicole hit this state less than 24 hours after Florida had that huge victory on election night.
And it coincides with the king tide. Now, more on the king tide in a second, but I really want to process this for everybody because this is, prophecy. Again, God said we could look to the heavens for signs and for seasons. This came from heaven, and this is, is this a sign? We'll let you be the judge. But the way I looked at this when I was reflecting on it, it was almost like a prayer and an answer. And again, can you show the folks that picture again and see how both of them, both in 2004 and in 2022 make a cross, make the sign, make literally a path of a cross. Now, in 2004, if you put those two names together, free man, God is gracious. I saw that almost as a prayer. Now, Jeb Bush was governor of Florida at that time. His brother, George, was just about to embark on an election. Is that significant? I don't know. We can talk about that. But I saw it almost as a prayer and an answer. So in 2004, free the man, free man. We were pleading for freedom, and God said, God is gracious. We were reminding him that God is gracious. And then all these years later, 18 years later, we have a crossover Florida, same dynamic. And look at that. The names were God is gracious, victory for the people. Now, pray on that. The Holy Spirit, I believe, was leading us to this interpretation. Now, there can be many. There doesn't have to just be one understanding of that. But I don't know, how you get 18 years later, if it's just coincidence that there were two hurricanes 18 years apart making the same path that mean the people, victory for the people, and two that mean God is gracious. Same name, different
both
names.
separated by 43 days.
Both separated by 43 days. And interestingly, if you like Hebrew gematria, if you like to look at what numbers mean, when you add the numbers together in 2004, it was a category 4 and a 3. 4 plus 3 is 7. 7 is the number of divine perfection. And then 18 years later, we have a cat 4 and a cat 1. That's the number 5. And number 5 is the number of grace. So, we have divine perfection always results, the answer was grace. So we put that out to you for your interpretation. And I'm going to just go one step further, and I'm going to share with you what the king tide portends. So what the king tide is about is that it's a harbinger for what things will look like in the future. And it's a harbinger for whatever you see happening in that moment, in that tide. It gets worse in a storm. The results will be amplified in a storm. Well, we know, I think conservatives know, that there is a storm that will be upon us. And I believe we will be victorious. And I do believe that there is going to be a great awakening before the Great Reset. There are prophecies about that by people with greater insight than I have. But when you look at what the king tide projects and portends, it's about victory, it's about going to a greater place, and it's about giving a glimpse of what will happen in the future. We had a red wave on election night. We gained 6% in Congress. That outperformed by almost 3 times what all the projections were. We had a red wave, but that's just a glimpse of what the projections are. When you see a king tide, it's going to get even bigger and even better, and it gets amplified in a storm. We're going to walk through this storm, and I do believe we're going to be victorious because I know that God's on our side. As I said when I started, when I was talking about prophecy watch, we've read the end of the book. We're born again Christians. We know how it ends. God wins. We have to walk through it, though, and it is going to get even more amplified. They're going to come at us stronger, but we are going to be victorious. Do we know exactly what that looks like yet? No, we don't. We just know that through faith, we will prevail. So, what are your thoughts, Michelle, on how we can help because you do a lot of work because we're practical as well. We've got the prophecies, we have to walk those out. So you do a lot of canvassing, you do a lot of volunteering. You're a critical member of the team there in Florida. You worked on the Trump campaign. There are a lot of things brewing between President Trump and Governor Ron DeSantis. Look, we tell the truth. We don't shy away from controversy on this show. We know it's going to it's already getting ugly. It's going to get brutal. But here's the thing, iron sharpens iron. Okay, now whether we agree or disagree with the way that President Trump is doing things, the final analysis, the final verdict will be how the people respond. Trump is going to be Trump. Ron DeSantis is emerging. He is a clear leader in the Republican Party. Now we've got 2 strong candidates that, President Trump, it looks like he's going to announce his bid for the presidency on the 15th, next Tuesday at Mar-a-Lago. And we have yet to see what Ron DeSantis's plans are. He just won the governorship, and that's something that he didn't really address in the debate, understandably. But if we get there, there are two possibilities. If Ron DeSantis wins, and if Ron DeSantis runs, and if President Trump runs, only one of two things will happen. Either one will win, or they'll team up. I'm kind of hoping for the latter. Everybody's got their opinions, but it's going to get ugly because President Trump, he talks smack and he throws punches, and we'll see how that dynamic plays out. But do you have any inside information or any thoughts, Michelle, on what we can expect on the Governor DeSantis team? Do you think he's going to run, and how brutal is this fight going to get?
So if you asked me that question a month ago, I would have said that he's not running. I'm not too sure now if that answer is true. As far as a feud between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump, I'm going to hold my opinion for now, because I think there's a lot of stuff being thrown out there, and I'm trying to figure out if this is all part of a Ron-Don strategy, and they will team up, and they're just, stoking some flames and seeing what happens. So I'm gonna hold and reserve comments on either one of them. But as far as them having a feud, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that somebody from Ron DeSantis's team said, no, there is no feud between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. So I'm not too sure if the boys, if Donald Trump is just being Donald Trump, and listen, Ron DeSantis, man, he did a lot of, I mean, this election was huge. You can't ignore that. And it could be that he's like, okay, well, he's going to be my my biggest competitor, so I'm going to start hitting now. It's possible. I'm not sure how it'll play out, especially in the state of Florida. And as far as canvassing, I've already spoke to a lot of people. And listen, I was on Donald Trump's team in 2020. I was a big part of Ron DeSantis's team now. So I really hope they get their shit together because I don't, this is going to be rough. And so I really do hope they figure it out, and I'll reserve my comments until I know where this is going. So I want to hear what Donald Trump has to say next week and how he says it. And then let's see. I mean, Ron DeSantis has not declared anything. The guy won an election, historic election on Tuesday, and then he's battling a hurricane here in the state. He's working. He's doing what he's supposed to do for the state of Florida. So he hasn't said anything about running for president. He's taking care of his state like he should be doing. And, so let's see what he's got to say as well. I mean, this whole thing could be just for nothing. I mean, if Ron DeSantis doesn't run for president, then what are we talking about? It's nothing. So I'm going to wait. It's not worth getting into until I can see everything that's going on.
Yep. And those are excellent points. And, part of President Trump's brand is, he's a fighter. He throws the first punch. He's a bare knuckles fighter. He cut his teeth in the world of New York real estate. He was born in the fire. And so, it doesn't bother me. I think he's talking smack. Now, do I love, everything that he says? I like both President Trump and I like Ron DeSantis. I think they are both so strong, and I think that Ron DeSantis is the future of the party in many ways. But I also think that President Trump needs to be back in that Oval Office. There's no substitute for experience. Ron DeSantis, he's coming out of the gate strong. He's a lot younger. And another thing that I get concerned about with Ron DeSantis is that, a lot of people say that, well, he doesn't have the baggage that President Trump has. But the reality is that the Democrats are going to make the baggage for him. Whoever is the nominee, they won't just amplify and twist the truth. They'll make things up.
Start doing it now.
And they're doing right. And the thing is that, President Trump, he has a war chest of his own. The RNC did step up and pay a lot of his legal bills when it pertained to exactly what happened in office, but he had to dip into his personal war chest. And, we need to make sure that Ron DeSantis can withstand that kind of fight. He's a fighter, but I don't think that there's any substitute for
I
time-tested
think
warriors.
what you have is you have two really strong leaders, with two very different styles, but both running on the exact same platform. So it almost will come down to your opinion on whose style do you like better. Because if you like what Donald Trump puts out as far as his platform and his policies, you're going to like what Ron DeSantis does as well, because they're exactly the same. What it's going to come down to is a decision of what you think of style. What style do you prefer to see in the Oval Office? And he has really come. I don't know if you saw. He put another statement out, an official statement, and attacking Ron DeSantis. So it's not even 48 hours past an election, and Ron DeSantis is out there battling hurricanes, a hurricane that's going across the whole state. And I'm not sure. I understand his strategy, but I'm not Donald Trump. I have a little thing for my governor, and I'm going to be a little overprotective of him. And I think, listen, he's going to do what he's got to do. But if Ron DeSantis does decide to run, I think President Trump has a problem. I do. I think it'll be his toughest opponent he's ever faced. And if you look even just at some of the comments that happened on Twitter or social media after that last statement came out, and it's not very favorable for President Trump. So I'm not sure what his strategy is or what he's trying to do. That's on him. And I'm just hoping that they don't beat each other. I mean, they're going to beat each other up, but I really don't want to have to be in the middle of, the parents' fight here. I just don't.
Well, and I think the numbers that President Trump quoted right at the rally about the spread right now for the projections, if both of them run in the primary, President Trump has 71%, and his closest competitor would be Ron DeSantis. As of right now, he's polling at about 10%, and then there are others down ballot like Mike Pence, like Mike Pompeo, that are even less than that. They're kind of splitting the remaining points there. That will change day by day, and this is a work in progress. This is a rolling. They're rolling out the fight, and I don't shy away from a fight. I think that, as I said, our iron sharpens iron. I think that we have to let Trump be Trump. And I don't always agree with everything the way he says it, but I do believe that he's the kind of person that throws the first punch, and I think that that's part of what makes him so tough on the world stage. Now, again, I'm a fan of Ron DeSantis as well. They will work it out, and the American people will be stronger for it. We're going to have the final say. They're going to make their case to us, and we get to decide. That primary, if Ron DeSantis runs, it's going to be one of the toughest primaries, I think, for conservatives to make a choice. But that's up to the two candidates. If there are two candidates, it's up to them to make their case to us, the American people, and then we will decide. To the victor will go the spoils. But one thing that's got to be critical and got to happen is we have to get back that White House in 2024. We cannot, our country will be gone if that does not happen. We have held the line right now in the midterm. We have a congressional majority on the House side. I do believe we still will get it on the Senate side. But even if we don't, it's not necessary to either Joe Biden. We're holding the line, but we've got to get it right in 2024.
Got to win in 24. Yeah. And that's the biggest concern. What we don't need is a huge feud between our two most powerful Republicans. So I pray, Donald Trump, please, let's get this right. And we don't know if Ron DeSantis is even running, because the last thing I just got a text now from somebody about this, and she's like, not helpful. And that's what I've been hearing here if you talk about canvassing here on the ground in Florida. Floridians, especially the ones that I've worked with, who've worked really hard to get Ron DeSantis elected, and people who voted for Ron DeSantis almost take this as a hit to everybody, not just to Ron DeSantis. They see it as okay, well, you just hit him. I just volunteered for him. I worked for him. I voted for him. You just hit it. You took a hit at all of us, and that's the way they're seeing it. And that's at least the people that I've spoke to. I have yet to come across anybody here in Florida that has worked on these teams, or that vote, or just at least voted for Ron DeSantis, that are not upset over what President Trump is doing, especially while Ron DeSantis is out fighting hurricanes and taking care of his state. and he's getting, one bomb after another, Moab from Donald Trump. Listen, Trump will be Trump. We'll see what happens.
Right. That's the bottom line. Trump will be Trump, and you either like his brand or you
It's going to be a
don't.
style thing.
It will, but I do believe that there's experience that he leads with, and there is, there's a time for everything, and time will tell. We will see how this shapes up. There's going to be, if they're both in the arena, there's going to be a fight. That's just how it's going to be. And
that's the frustrating thing,
begun.
Trish, because Donald Trump is the guy with the experience, and like I said a month ago, I was all about Trump for 4 years and Ron DeSantis for 8, and then Kari Lake for another 8. That was like my dream come true. But if the reality of a Donald Trump and DeSantis battle come to be, it's not going to be great. I don't know. It's going to get ugly. It's going to get ugly. And the last thing we want to do is to get it so ugly and so divided amongst ourselves that we leave the door open in 2024, we blow it. That can't happen.
But we cannot go out of fear. See, that's the thing that I get very, very upset, I get put off by the fact that some people say that we need to pull back. No, we don't need to.
It's not pull back. Strategy. It's not pulling back.
Go full force. If that is how it's going to go, that's how it'll go. Donald Trump has got to be. He said that you got to let Trump be Trump. And again, it might not be everybody's flavor, but the smack talk has already begun. That is Donald Trump's firebrand. And then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Then the people will decide. But I don't want to, my concern is getting a narrative out there that the Democrats will capitalize on. It doesn't matter. Iron sharpens iron. 2 strong fighters in the ring, punching it out. If that's what happens, that's what happens.
I'm not really so concerned about Trump or DeSantis. I'm concerned about the voters.
But they'll make their decision. It's up to them to bring it to the people in whatever style, in whatever flavor they bring it. And strength is not always pretty. I've always said that, if General MacArthur, there had been Twitter back then, he would have been worse than Trump. He would have been banned right from the get-go. Margaret Thatcher, who's one of my heroes, she did not mince words, and not everybody liked her. And ultimately, as all prime ministers of England do, they went by the wayside, just like Winston Churchill, who again I think would have been worse than, quote unquote, worse than Trump when it comes to the flowery language. But look, Winston Churchill stood against Hitler, against the very definition of evil in the 20th century. I don't think that we need to sugarcoat anything. And again, it's up to the candidates. It's up to them how they run their campaign. And again, like you said, Michelle, we don't even know if there's going to be a head-to-head matchup. But if there is, they're going to go full throttle. And that's okay, because at the end of the day, then whoever gets to the general election is going to be made of steel. And I think those 2 candidates already kind of are, especially President Trump. And that's how you forged in the fire. You come out of it either a winner or a loser, but you come out stronger, not weaker.
Okay.
That's just and tell us what you guys think, and the viewers, tell us what you think in the comments. We want to hear from you as well. This is a battle that is beginning, and again, how it works out, we shall see, but it's definitely going to be interesting times for sure. We are now officially in the 2024 presidential cycle, and it is going to get hot. It's already coming in hot. It's going to get hotter.
That's for sure. No doubt about it.
Yep. So any last words? We're a little over an hour here. Thanks to our viewers for sticking with us. Any final thoughts, Michelle, as we go into, kind of a wait and see? We're in election watch, as it says on the ticker there. What are your thoughts going into the weekend, and how quickly can we expect some of these elections to be resolved?
Oh, well, I was hoping that they would have been resolved already, but Arizona, it could potentially go into next week. Hopefully we'll get all those results. We can continue celebrating. I hope we should be celebrating Kari Lake's victory very soon, which is going to be awesome, getting her in there. And, as somebody who's been working through this whole election cycle, I'd like to take a couple of days off, but Donald Trump's not going to let us do that. He's jumped right into 2024. So I guess there is no rest for anybody who is in politics. We just keep going into the next election cycle and keep rolling with the ball, and just keep pushing it forward. We got to push the ball forward. No backwards, only forward.
Right. As I say to my kids, forward is better than backward.
Never go backwards.
Right. Never. Yep. So, and we're rolling in it. I said before the midterm that, the day after we're going to be in the next cycle. And indeed we are.
Literally.
So that wraps it up for another episode of We the People. We thank the boss lady, Michelle Albergo, for joining us as always. Stay tuned. We're going to have some exciting guests coming up, and we're going to pop in here and there with any breaking news. If we get any resolution on some of these numbers and some of these tallies for these critical races that we're watching, we will certainly let you know. Follow us on Twitter. You're at Bold Voice 17, Michelle, right?
Yep.
All right.
Bold Voice 17.
Catch Michelle Albergo there. I'm at New Day for NJ, both on Twitter and on Facebook. Don't be afraid to get back on Twitter, folks. We can't cede any more ground to the liberals. Get our voices out there, and let's do this. Let's make this the election season to get activated and
let's make America Florida.
Yep, I am all for that. Sweep the nation. So thank you, Michelle. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next time. But in the meantime, God bless you. God bless America. God bless President Donald Trump. We'll see you then. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.